After October 7th, everyone was backing Israel, right? We had this information. 2,000 Israelis got killed. Hamas went in there and killed a bunch of babies. Like, they got put in ovens. Like, the mass, like, everyone was like, yeah, like, you know, we're going to go support Israel. This is. Then information starts coming out. We find out that it was 1,200 that died. Then we find out that about 400 of them were IDF. Then we find out that the Hannibal Directive was activated that day, which the Hannibal Directive, for those that don't know, is a directive that Israel implements where they kill their own citizens and or soldiers to avoid them being kidnapped by Palestinian militias. Why? Because they don't want to go ahead and do a prisoner exchange like they're currently doing now with the ceasefire, where there's an asymmetric trade between Israelis and Palestinians. For like one Israeli, they got to give up like 100 Palestinians. So this is a diplomatic and geopolitical nightmare for the Israeli government, and they don't want to deal with it. So the Hannibal Directive became a thing that it would kind of save them headaches later on when it comes to hostage negotiations. And roughly 2 to 3 weeks ago, they just finally admitted this. Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, basically the equivalent of our Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, he admitted that the Hannibal Directive was activated on that day. Wow. So let's do the math. It went from 2,000 to 1,200. Roughly 400 of those people were IDF. So that's enemy combatants. Fair game, right? Unfortunately. Then we're down to 800. Then we find out that the Hannibal Directive was activated. Well, you look, there's Apache helicopter footage, and then obviously footage of the kibbutzes getting blown up by tanks. That's all IDF. And then when you look at the music festival, all those burned up cars, Hamas doesn't have that capability. They got still like piece of World War II weapons. So hundreds of Israelis were killed by the IDF on that day. Now, does that mean that Hamas didn't kill people? They absolutely did, and that's horrible. But we need to be realistic here and understand what were the facts of what actually transpired on that day. And they ended up kidnapping another 200 citizens, roughly 200. So, but Israel, right, sensationalized everything with the beheaded babies and the babies in ovens, which is not true at all, right? They sensationalized everything because they needed something to start the war and to be able to not just start the war, but to go hard at Gaza and level it. So they needed peak outrage, peak anger, and peak emotional stimuli to be able to go ahead and wage the war that they've done now for the past year plus, where they've been indiscriminately bombing and destroying all the buildings in Gaza. And for anybody that might say, oh well, Myron, Israel has the right to defend itself. Okay, cool, fair enough. Well, tell me this then. If Israel has a right to defend itself and Hamas is underground as they claim and they're hiding behind their citizens, why are you bombing all the buildings above ground? That doesn't make sense. They're in tunnels, right? Why are you bombing all these buildings above ground? And then also on top of that, Israel has one of the best militaries in the world because they use a lot of our technology. They have missiles capable of taking out an entire floor of a building while keeping the building intact. Wow. They did an attack on Hezbollah up in Lebanon. And what they did was they put bombs in pagers, beepers, walkie-talkies, and other type of equipment. And they blew them up all simultaneously. But the crazy part is they had those bombs in those devices for 10 years. Jeez. Imagine that. You intercept the shipment of walkie-talkies and phones and all this other stuff that is going to go to your enemy. You put bombs in them in like 2015. And then you let them go to the targets in Lebanon. They're using them for years thinking like, yeah, we're good. Because they were using this, more older technology because they didn't want to be intercepted by Mossad and Unit 8200 because Israel has very good intelligence capabilities of intercepting electronic devices. So they're using this older equipment thinking that they're safe. But unbeknown to them, there's bombs in them. So in September of last year, they detonated like hundreds of them. And they killed a bunch of Hezbollah fighters. Holy crap. Then you look at Tehran, Iran, who is their chief op, a guy named Ismail Haniyeh, who's like the chief negotiator for Hamas. They killed him in Iran. How did they do it? They had a bomb that they put in his he stays at this house. They put a bomb there and it killed him and his bodyguard. And the Mossad had put that there months before. Damn. So we're talking about a very sophisticated, intelligent, and powerful military and intelligence operation that they have between Shin Bet, Unit 8200, Mossad, who is like their CIA equivalent. They're very good. So you're telling me that you guys couldn't just run operations and go ahead and kill the leaders of Hamas like you've done for years anyway? You got to bomb all of Gaza and knock the buildings down and kill tens of thousands of kids? Like, I find this interesting too because Donald Trump kind of let this slip at his press conference. So he's there at the press conference with Benjamin Netanyahu, which, by the way, was the first person to visit the White House in his term. of course. And we know by conservative estimates, there were roughly 2.3 million people that lived in Gaza. And then Trump says, hey, we got like 1.7, 1.6 or 1.8 million people that are displaced and we want to move them to Jordan or Egypt, right? He was talking about getting them out of Gaza and moving them to Jordan and Egypt. Now, while everyone was being outraged about moving them, I looked at the numbers. 1.6, 1.7? Let's even go all the way to 1.8, right? Let's use the most conservative numbers. Let's say 1.8 that are still alive. Well, we know at the lowest, 2 million. We're talking about 200,000 people that are missing. 200,000, right? So, and here's the thing. There's still people under rubble. There's a lot of people missing, right? So no one really knows how many are dead yet. Well over 20,000 kids.
Wow.
Well over 20,000. So we're talking about casualties in the hundreds of thousands now at this point, right? So when Trump let that slip, I was like, oh, shit, right? Like,
that's a lot.
That's a lot of people that are dead. And, you know, Israel's been like kind of trying to hide this for a bit, right? They've been bragging, we killed 20,000 Hamas fighters or whatever. Then you look at the ceasefire, when they're bringing the hostages out, I see a lot of with green bandanas and masks. Like, hey, did you guys kill anybody? Like, what the is going on here? And then on top of that, they pretty much, Israeli intelligence has figured out that Hamas membership is stronger now than ever before. More people have joined. Well, for every one person you kill, guess what? You've probably radicalized all of his male family members, right? So people that might have not liked Hamas or not agreed with their political ideology or how they go about things, well, you just killed his brother. What's he going to do? He's going to pick up a AK-47 and wear the green bandana and run around now, right? So, you know, and this is what I mean when I say if you can't kill an ideology. You can't kill they can kill as many of these guys as they want. They're going to continue to resist. They're never going to stop. And the Arab world is never going to accept them. So until Israel understands that Palestinian sovereignty is required for their peace, there's never going to be peace in that area.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. When I was younger, I really believed in war. I was pro-war. I thought we were doing a good thing. And as I gotten older, it's just there's a bigger game being played with all these.
It's bad, dude. It funds the military-industrial complex. You know, obviously, we have these neocons, because the last war we had, right, with Iraq, if you look at all the architects of the Iraqi war, they're all neocons.
Wow.
Bill Kristol, Pearl, Wolfowitz, Feith, like all these guys are neocons, a majority of them. So, and then you look at the Clean Break Memo in 1996. In that paper, it was a paper written by, I think, Wormser, or he was on the board of it. It was it was written by Pearl, led the think tank, I think, and then Wormser was, so if you look at the Clean Break Memo, which was written in 1996, it was basically a strategy written by Douglas Pearl and a couple of other neocons, Feith, etc., where they wrote this for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on how to essentially secure Israel's interests from a security perspective. And in it, the number one thing that they wanted was to get rid of Saddam Hussein. Well, we need a Pearl Harbor-like event for that to happen. What was it? 9/11. 9/11 happens. Now we have all the justification we need, right? And then they came up with the anthrax story, which was a lie, saying that Israeli intelligence officials met with Mohammed Atta somewhere in Asia and transferred anthrax, and that's how they got the anthrax attacks. And then when you look, it says death to Jews, death to America. Come on, dude. False flag. So, and they do this all the time. The Mossad's old model was by deception, we create war. That's literally their old model. They don't do, for obvious reasons, they changed it, because that's too obvious. So now it's like, now they've switched it up. But the point I'm trying to make here is that was the strategy from the beginning, and the Arab world hasn't forgot about that. So again, I'm an America First guy. I'm an American patriot, and I don't want to be fighting wars for a foreign country. I don't want American soldiers dying in foreign lands in the Middle East for a war that doesn't benefit them, that we don't need to be involved in. All of these Middle Eastern wars have been for Israel, all of them. And it's ridiculous. But the reason why is because they have a strong lobby, they have incredible influence, and they run almost every main juncture point in American society.
Yeah, a lot of these veterans are waking up, actually, I think.
Yeah. Well, the USS Liberty did that. Shout out to Candace Owens. She had a guy named Phil Turney on. I had him on my show as well, but obviously her show is huge. And he went ahead and talked about the USS Liberty. And the USS Liberty, for those that are unaware, it's a story that's been suppressed forever. Lyndon B. Johnson tried to bury it. But a bunch of sailors were on a spy ship, an intelligence ship, and they were attacked by Israel. They bombed the hell out of them. 30 plus soldiers were killed. Phil Turney was one of the survivors. He sat there and watched as they were bombing and killing his shipmates. And, to this day, they don't like to acknowledge it. They say, oh, it was a mistake, friendly fire. They didn't know. They thought it was the Egyptians. It's all man. What I think is they were bombing that ship. They wanted them all dead, and then they would blame it on Egypt.
Yeah.
That's what it was. So, because they were out there in the water collecting information and listening to phone calls and shit like that. That's what the ship was out there doing. But yeah, they bombed the hell out of them, dude. Damn. And a bunch of them died. And Lyndon B. Johnson, instead of sticking up for his soldiers, what did he do? He made them all sign gag orders, and they couldn't talk about it. And if they did, they would lose their careers.
Wow. So
Lyndon B. Johnson.
Everyone on that ship signed that?
Pretty much, yeah. The survivors.
Holy crap.
And it's like only recently that now they've been talking about what happened on that day. And I asked Phil Turney when I had him on, hey, did Israel know you guys were Americans? Yeah, they knew.
Damn.
I was like, wow.
Wherever you guys are watching this show, I would truly appreciate it if you follow or subscribe. It helps a lot with the algorithm. It helps us get bigger and better guests, and it helps us grow the team. Truly means a lot. Thank you guys for supporting, and here's the episode.